Okay. Hi, hello, my name is Lainey. I'm a cosplayer and YouTuber who likes to talk about things like D&D, books, my own creations, and so much more. And this is about to be my fastest intro, because I must beat the sun. But in all seriousness, welcome to Cosplaying on a Budget, a series, hopefully, in which I will share with you all the ways I try not to spend $100 on every cosplay I make. Every cosplayer has had to come to terms with the fact that cosplay is very expensive. It is an expensive hobby, and it gets real pricey real quick, which is why I think so many people turn away from it, which is very understandable. But I found it my duty as a cosplayer to try and find as many loopholes or anything to find a way around this capitalistic world that we live in, so that I may continue my dream of dressing up as a fantasy character. In today's video, I will be making Imogen Temult, I don't know. Imogen from Critical Role's newest campaign, Campaign 3. But hopefully you'll be able to take some of these tips and tricks and apply it to any costume you may be working on, or maybe you're just using this as a guide to make your own Imogen cosplay, which this will also help. But with all of that being said, let's go. Let's start. So like with any other project, let's begin with our materials. Having cosplayed for about 3 years now means that I had a lot of the materials needed for this costume already in my closet, which already gives me a huge advantage upon other beginner cosplayers. But if the pandemic has taught me anything, it's that a thrift store will be your best friend. I found a lot there for little, most of the time. So before heading to your nearest fabric store, maybe try thrifting. Scavenge through a local thrift store and see what you can find first. As far as what I already had in my fabric hoard, I was able to come across these really old curtains for the dress, an old tablecloth for the vest. Fun fact, I made a Xerophil's vest out of the same tablecloth, a bunch of fake leather vinyl from previous projects, and these buttons that I didn't end up using anyways because they were too small. But I did end up having to get whatever kind of fabric this is for her scarf, rivets for the belts, and order a wig from Amazon. I use the Simplicity Vest pattern 4762, which I've since modified, but you can also get away with patterning your own vest or finding a free version online, which I'll talk more about later. There really isn't much to be said about this part aside from I followed the pattern instructions and ended up with this. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this little sewing montage. No, wait, I do have something to say. Screw you, buttonhole maker. You were a waste of my time, you little piece of— I ended up just making the buttonholes by hand, but once that was done, so was the vest. I'm about to embark on the worst part of this project, which is her belt. Why I'm calling this the worst part is because it includes having to do math. I can do math, I just don't like doing it. I don't even know what to do. It's like, I don't know, I think I'm just overthinking it. I guess we'll just start measuring where I want everything. This had to have been the hardest part of Imogen's costume, and I'll be honest, I had some trouble figuring it out at first, so this isn't going to be the best nor the most accurate belt, but to summarize, this is how I did it. I split the belt into 5 parts: the suspenders, the main belt, a second belt on top of the main one, and all the supports for the suspenders. The main belt is just a 3.5 by 25 inch rectangle of foam covered by a rectangle of leather vinyl of the same size, just with some added seam allowance. The second belt was made in a similar fashion except for 2.5 by 40 inches to create an overlap. To keep the second belt in place and replace the belt buckle seen in her concept art, I added 5 belt loops and eyelets to the back of the main belt. The suspenders are 2 by 40 inches installed using rivets, which not everyone has, but a simple solution would just be sewing the suspenders directly onto the main belt. Lastly, I added the little supports to the front of the suspenders, which are just 1 by 6 inch strips of leather vinyl. What you doing? You're adorable. I take it back. This was the hardest part of Imogen's costume, purely because those curtains were a disaster to work with. The pattern I used was the Amara wrap dress, with some modifications, from Move Fabrics, who, by the way, has a collection of free sewing patterns, including cosplay-oriented patterns. This isn't sponsored or anything, I just think that it's a great resource for beginner cosplayers, or those who just want to start sewing and don't know how to draft their own patterns. I did end up leaving a lot of the section out of the video due to how aggravating the fabric was to work with, but once again I was just mainly following the instructions provided with the pattern, so you aren't missing much. The pattern was based on one I already had. Don't mind my collection of patterns over there. They're just really easy to make, but I'll try to link a similar one in the description. The blade is 4mm foam, while the handle is 8mm. The detail's 2mm foam, and finally, to add some stability, I used a small wooden dowel in the center. I used contact cement to glue everything together and sanded the whole thing with a Dremel. To paint the knife, I used a mixture of acrylics, plaid or plaid FX paints, and Rust-Oleum spray paint in dark bronze, which I used specifically for the blade. I am being brief with my explanation, and that's on purpose because I already have a video planned on the subject that will be a lot more detailed in my process. Hopefully. Knowing me, it might just be a lot of nonsensical rambling. I found all of her accessories very easy and quick to make, so lightning round. The scarf was made of 2 giant triangles of fabric sewed together and turned inside out to hide the seams. The gloves, although a little harder to make, were based just on my hand with the pinky and thumb cut off. The first attempt was made using the same fake leather vinyl I used for the belt, which definitely did not work because the fabric has no stretch or give to it at all. So with my second attempt, I decided to just use some leftover spandex fabric. It may not be canon, but who am I kidding? This is a fantasy character, so who gives a crap? The coin patch was really easy to make. It's just one big circle with a diameter of 10 inches that I punched a bunch of holes into, all 1 inch apart from each other in order to run a ribbon through it and tie it all together. The shorts were the final thing I made, but didn't really have to make in the first place because I got them last minute from Walmart. But I just cut and hemmed them to the length that I wanted them to be. All, considering the cost of the pants and the wig, which I will also link in the description, the total cost came to about $35, which when compared to other costumes I've made, not bad. As for the costume, it works as a first attempt. I like how the belt and knife came out. Might have made some mistakes with the vest, but nothing Photoshop can't fix. But oh my god, that dress! I knew I should have just ironed it, but I can't even listen to my own advice. Anyways, I will probably end up remaking that dress sometime in the future. Personally, I think the texture of the pleats didn't work out the way I pictured it in my head, but I love cosplaying Imogen in the end, so it doesn't really matter.